Welcome to Hormones and Handstands, a functional hormone nutritionist and a beauty editor and yoga teacher's guide to acing the challenges of midlife.
Hello, I'm Pippa Campbell. I'm a functional hormone nutritionist, and I've been helping women with their hormones for over 16 years, getting to the root cause and the nitty-gritty of why they're suffering with hormonal issues and weight gain. And that makes me the hormones part of this podcast.
And I'm Victoria Woodhall. I am a yoga teacher and a journalist. And because I love a challenge and looking at things from unusual angles, that makes me the handstands part. This podcast is all about making the private chats that Pippa and I have public. We're always messaging each other for tips and advice. And we thought other women really want to know this stuff. So this week, we are going to be talking about progesterone. We're going to be talking about hair loss and thinning. And we're going to be talking about breaking the cycle of anxiety with a quick breath technique.
Exciting.
First, Pippa, what have you been up to this week?
You know, the highlight of my week? Well, I just love it when the children have been back for university holidays anyway, because honestly, the food that, well, particularly my son cooks, so he's 21, and I'm so pleased that I think many people might think I'm like an almond mum. So that is like, deprived my children for life of anything nice. But actually, they have grown up with a very healthy attitude. We didn't have sweets and things like that. However, my son is an amazing cook. Now, he started off typical boy, like red meat, barbecuing steaks, barbecuing red meat joints and things like that. And he's brilliant. It's only charcoal only on the barbecue. But he's moved to seafood and fish, which is really exciting. He made, oh my goodness, the most delicious, the nicest I've ever tasted seafood risotto. So he used clams and prawns, a fresh seafood stock as well, and particularly carnaroli rice, which I introduced him to that. So carnaroli rice apparently is the superior one to arborio that the Italians use, and it's the way it really absorbs the stock. And I used a little bit of white wine, and he did the clams first of all in garlic, chili, bit of white wine. Oh, honestly, it was so delicious. So I was like, sous chef, it was great. I took a back seat.
Brilliant. Well, when my daughter comes home from university, we all have to go properly gluten-free again because she's gluten intolerant. So, and actually, it's sort of a diet I prefer, but our food bill does go up because it's quite expensive being gluten-free, especially as a student. She's found it a real struggle. But so this week, I'm literally sitting on my yoga mat because I finished teaching my morning yoga class. And my ladies that join me on Zoom, they asked today for a class for hips. It seems to be always hips are the thing when you get to midlife. And, I've been doing the gardening all weekend. My hips feeling stiff. I've been sitting down. So we did a lot of hip focused work. And a lot of people always think that when we talk about aging well, people kind of forget the movement part. Uh, we focus on hair and skin and,
Yeah, the visible things.
yeah, but moving in a youthful way. And that's why I love yoga so much because it's functional movement, like your functional nutrition. It's helping you to have a better day because you're functioning better. And I remember when Davina McCall gave me this great tip, and I've always remembered it. I've interviewed her several times over the years. And the magazine that commissioned me for this particular time that I met her said, "Oh, get Davina's anti-aging tips." They probably call them longevity tips now.
Yeah, yeah.
And I said to Davina, "Okay, what's your best anti-aging tip?" She said, "The best anti-aging tip is stop saying oof. When you get off the sofa, don't say oof. Like, oh, ooh, oof,
Oh,
oof."
that sounds so old, doesn't it, actually? Oh,
Because she said there's nothing more older sounding than saying oof the whole time. And of course, in order not to say oof, you've got to factor movement into your life. And so for me, that's what yoga does. It gives you an oof free day.
but your muscles really, I'm just looking at your shoulders now. You have got gorgeous shoulders. You know, a lot of women really are paranoid about getting bingo wings, or they feel that's the area that gets really flabby over the age of 40.
Oh, well, a quick tip. I'm going to make my bingo wings disappear instantly, and I'll try
Oh,
and
okay.
this about everybody who's on audio. Okay, so I'm stretching just one arm out to the side, and Like, can you see I've got a bingo wing? Flabby wobble wobble. So I'm wobbling my the skin under my arm.
That's because it's not contracting. So we'll all have that though.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm now going to press an imaginary child down under my arm, and can you see my bingo wing magically disappears?
Is it
So
engaging?
engaging. So in yoga we do this movement a lot. Warrior two, reverse warrior one. It's just engaging the muscles so they don't switch off. And of course, we all get loose skin. That's fine. It's just a bit of loose skin.
Exactly. I mean, we can't be that's the thing about aging well, I think, is that we've got to remember, and it's the same with hormones. So we cannot expect our bodies to look like when we were doing, all this work, building muscle in our 20s. That my daughter's, I mean, her body, she's got so much muscle. My son has so much muscle. I mean, we just don't we're not going to look exactly like that. And it's the same with hormones. Like I love strength training, I love lifting weights, and I love doing upper body. And so many women are scared, oh, am I going to really bulk up? We are never going to bulk up like that over the age of 40. I mean, we don't even have enough testosterone. So there's absolutely no way. So no one has to worry about that. But it's the same as hormones in a way. I don't know why it's almost like there's this view of chasing our hormones to be like they were in our 20s, but we shouldn't be. So I think rather than hormone replacement, I know that word HRT stands for, hormone replacement therapy. In a way, I feel it should be hormone sort of replenishment. So we're all about replenishment. And whether that's if you choose to go down the HRT route or not, or combining diet, lifestyle supplements with HRT. It's all about replenishment. And the reason why I want to talk about progesterone today is because actually that is the first hormone to decline in perimenopause. And when I say perimenopause, look, that's really just a word. So in a way we can sort of forget about that. What we're talking about is from the age of 35 or 40, progesterone is declining whether we like it or not.
And how do we know? How would we experience that decline in progesterone?
So sometimes it's quite subtle at the beginning, sometimes not. Often a woman will notice more symptoms in the second half of her cycle, which is the luteal phase. So once you've ovulated, if you ovulate, then progesterone is more of the star of the show. So that's when we used to feel a little bit sort of tired and sleepy. Now, what happens when our progesterone is declining? Because progesterone is like our calming anti-anxiety hormone. So women can start feeling more anxious, but they might feel more anxious in this luteal phase. So they'll feel more anxious, less resilient to stress. But again, remember these things I'm saying so far, it could be just stress. It could be the son doing GCSEs. It could be going through a divorce. It could be many things. So less resilient to stress, waking up in the night, or sometimes waking up twice in the night to go to the loo. Now, some women go, oh, it must be my bladder. It's just a bit weaker. But actually, it's that you're not getting that restorative sleep. So you're waking up and then you're going to the loo. However,
And we're saying progesterone is responsible for helping you get to sleep. Is that right?
yes, absolutely helps you particularly get to sleep and just more restorative sleep as well. But it is also anti-diuretic. So yes, women may feel more bloated and need to go to the loo more often. But because progesterone is a hormone that supports GABA, so GABA is our relaxing, calming neurotransmitter. That's the one that just makes us go, ah. So because progesterone supports that, helps make GABA, when our progesterone is declining, honestly, we just feel more stressed, more anxious is a big one. That's a big symptom that so many women report when I can see on the booking forms when they book into us in clinic, anxiety is a huge one.
I have to say, I wish I'd known that in my 40s and being able to identify it and potentially supplement. I do take progesterone now
Yeah.
because definitely sleep has always been a thing for me. And we'll come back to the subject of insomnia and how to tackle sleep issues through our various things that we've picked up over the years. But definitely, I noticed an increase in anxiety, an increase in like where I would probably have slept okay, the margin of
Yeah.
having a bad night's sleep, that would happen a lot quicker. And I noticed when I started taking progesterone, HRT, Utrogestan, which is the one commonly prescribed in the UK,
Yes.
um, it was like, oh my God, I got my sleep back. It was brilliant. First of all, they gave me the vaginal one. I don't know why.
That's really bizarre because the vaginal one doesn't reach the brain in the same way. So you're not going to get that GABA. So I presume when you tried the vaginal one, you didn't have the brain benefits.
No, I didn't. Well, the vagina one, I just felt a bit off.
It will protect the lining of the womb, but it's not going to give you that GABA support. So the anti anxiety sleep.
And I actually asked my doctor to change it because it came with these kind of, they got these kind of plastic stick you up, I think. Like they look a bit like syringes, you kind of
Yeah, suppositories. Yeah. Or pessary. It's more of a pessary, isn't it? Yeah.
with the medication at the end and you stick it up. But every day I was throwing away this bit of plastic and I said I'd want something with less plastic in because they couldn't prescribe it to me
And it's
without.
like messing your pants. I tried the same thing. I was put on that in my late teens when they thought my PMS and estrogen dominance was to do with low progesterone, which it was not. So it didn't work at all. So they gave me natural progesterone. Didn't work at all because I just had excess estrogen was the issue. But again, I remember that and it was very messy.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I didn't find that so much, but what I found when I switched to the oral one is because it needs to be metabolized by the liver, I think, doesn't it? So if you're just having it vaginally, it's not going through your digestive system. So, yeah, the fact that it was metabolized by the liver helps produce GABA. Is that right?
Well, this is the interesting thing for some people, for others not. So,
Ooh.
when I first sensed that my progesterone was lower, look, I'd done my Dutch test. I knew sort of what was happening, slightly low, but I didn't have any symptoms. So, remember, we are looking at symptoms where you don't just suddenly have to take progesterone if you don't have the symptoms. Also, you can support GABA. There are other ways, but this is interesting. So, when I first went into perimenopause, age 48, I'm now 52, I had anxiety, heart palpitations. That's another symptom of low progesterone as well. Less resilience to stress, and so I knew that I was in perimenopause. I was waiting for my Dutch test results, so um, as soon as I sent off the results, I did start on some supplements which I've been recommending clients for many years. It's like there's a glandular supplement very similar to my Peri-Balance, which then that's why I created it because I wanted a perimenopause supplement. But anyway, there's one which helps support symptoms. So it is not replacing your hormones like HRT, but is helping support the symptoms. So actually, within literally, honestly, even within a week of taking it, and then a month, all my symptoms went away. However, then when I was under stress, because stress really depletes your progesterone, and that's what we have to remember. It's not all about what's happening in perimenopause, but are you stressed out as well? That's going to deplete your progesterone even faster. So I was then quite stressed out. There's a time I just, was doing all these ridiculous clinic hours during the pandemic, and some symptoms sort of came back. I was already taking these subvert, glandulate. So I thought I would try some progesterone. And I tried the oral one, nothing. Nothing at all. And I did some research and worked out time. Now we have proper research and clinical trials, and it shows why. Because I've just taught a perimenopause course with Dutch in America, and we now know that women like me who convert their progesterone to a less active metabolite. So after we make our progesterone, it then converts to these metabolites. So you've got a 5 alpha metabolite, 5 beta. It's the alpha that supports GABA and gives you those lovely anti anxiety effects. And genetically, often women choose one way or other. Now, so whenever I do my Dutch test and I've seen in DNA testing, I'm a really 5 beta person. And I think, Victoria, you're 5 alpha, but we'll find that soon enough, from what you told me anyway. So I was then, way I metabolize it in the liver, it goes more down this 5 beta route. So to get those same effects, often then what women have to do is they have to go for a different form, like a sublingual, you need to bypass the liver because it's the liver where it converts it. Anyway, I did this for about a month and actually I gave up because the symptoms then, sort of went away, and I just didn't find wasn't getting quite the same benefits from the progesterone. But to be honest, I would say currently, I'm still in perimenopause. We do know it's a roller coaster, but so I'm just sort of like touching wood here. No. I'm actually pretty symptom free. So I'm still getting regular periods. I'm not getting heart palpitations or that extreme anxiety.
What progesterone do you take then?
I'm not taking anything at the moment. I'm not saying I won't. It's a tough one because I don't feel those benefits. I don't really notice a difference. So what's better for women who convert their progesterone more to the 5 beta and 5 alpha? What we need is that GABA support, particularly really direct GABA support. I like taking things like saffron and L-theanine, which is in my chill supplement. I also like ashwagandha. I really like adaptogenic herbs. I love magnesium, really like that. B6 is another one. So I take other, supplements because for me, it's really honing in on that GABA. But for someone like you, and I've seen this in clinic over the years, a woman literally overnight will take progesterone who's converting it more 5 alpha, and they're like, oh my goodness, this is just the best thing. And like, oh,
It is. I couldn't be without her. Interestingly, my sister, I was like evangelical and she was struggling with sleep. I said, get yourself on this progesterone. It didn't work for her. In fact, she was almost intolerant. She had a kind of a negative reaction to it.
that's progesterone sensitivity. So that is the paradoxical GABA effect, which sounds a bit sciencey and a bit strange. So for some women, progesterone can be almost the receptors are too sensitive, and they get then completely the other way. And actually, it's they can develop PMDD, but it can be so bad. Women can go into a really, really dark place and almost feel suicidal. So it is really not a good.
PMDD, can you just tell us what that is?
So that is like a probably extreme version of PMS.
Right.
Okay. But so PMS, that's something that I suffered with, although now I think there are some doctors that might say it was PMDD. I did not have progesterone sensitivity, but it was just a very extreme version of PMS because of my excess estrogen. But some women are just very sensitive to progesterone, whether it's PMDD or not. They can be just very, very sensitive, whether it's their own progesterone or just for the first time when they take HRT. Now, what happens is, as I said, this receptor, the GABA receptor, is overly sensitive. In functional medicine, and I'm not a doctor, so I don't prescribe. I'm just saying what I know the doctors, functional doctors that I work with. They will work very closely with our client, and they often try a higher dose because what's been shown to happen is that 100 milligrams of progesterone is a disaster for these women, an absolute disaster. But as soon as they go to higher doses above 200, it can break through that sensitivity at the receptor level. I know that sounds quite sort of scary for a woman who is reacting to progesterone, but if they seek out, a doctor that understands it, and I've seen women often, it might be that they're taking 200, 300 milligrams, so they go to a slightly higher dose, and then they're okay. So, I'm just saying that there is hope. There is also, of course, taking it vaginally, but then what you won't get, you'll get the protection of the lining of the womb, but you get less of that GABA supportive anti-anxiety. That's all.
Yeah, and it might be worth pointing out why the protection of the lining of the womb is important because when you go on HRT, as I am on, you get if you have a womb, you haven't had a hysterectomy, you'll generally get estrogen and progesterone together because taking estrogen alone doesn't.
Yes, although early perimenopause, very few women need estrogen, to be honest. Very few. In fact, some women go through whole of perimenopause and they don't need estrogen at all until it drops just before menopause. Because what happens, you go as I explained in the last episode, estrogen goes very high and spiking. So often women might start with progesterone and estrogen then comes in later. So actually, in a way, it's the same thing though, because in early perimenopause, our own estrogen is naturally very, very high. So building up the lining of the womb. So sometimes progesterone dosage might even need to go higher to match that. And you need to help detoxify and that excess estrogen because the lining of the womb keeps building up. And if you don't have enough progesterone to stabilize it, then you can get spotting, bleeding, shedding, and that sort of thing. So yes, it's always important, of course, and doctors should always recommend, if they're recommending estrogen, always recommend progesterone. But, it is a really important hormone, and I think it's very overlooked. And it has, as I said, when you're stressed, it's depleted even more. So that's why we always test cortisol as well. We're always looking at what's happening with the adrenal hormones. That's super important. And then also the relationship between progesterone and thyroid is very closely linked. So women often find that they got suddenly underactive thyroid for the first time over the age of 40, or their low thyroid is even worse. Their markers actually increase. So it's important to have a look at all hormones together.
Yeah, so a lot of women listening to this will be going, "Oh my gosh, I'm now more confused than I was started." Can you distill it for us into, if you're thinking about this hormone progesterone, it's sort of this be called nature's antidepressant. Um, it's so important for, mood stability, as you say, and the link to thyroid. So what would be the best first step?
And I think you can even go to a doctor. Look, symptoms are so important. Really, really important. So if you think, right, I'm sure this has got to do with my progesterone, but many women age 40 are not thinking they're in perimenopause or there's, something going on with their, progesterone. But hopefully by listening to this, they will all say, right, okay, you can go to your GP if you've got, most likely at this stage, you've got regular cycles. Because actually this anxiety and less resilience to stress and the sleep usually precedes any change in periods. Okay. So what you can do is even go to your doctor. So I'm not saying you have to rush out and go and do Dutch testing with us. You can go to your GP and get a blood test done on days between days 19 and 22 of your cycle to test progesterone and estrogen because you get the second little wave of estrogen then. And testosterone is pretty the same all month, so you get your testosterone checked. You can also get FSH tested, and you can get SHVG. So there's a panel. Just go and ask for a full sort of women's panel.
I think though that's wouldn't be the NHS probably wouldn't give you that.
They should, well, they most a lot of our clients go to their GP and they should be able to get their progesterone and estrogen tested. So we are looking at, really, we want to understand what's happening with the progesterone, because if you're suffering with anxiety, heart palpitations, for example, and that's quite scary. If a woman has heart palpitations, then you should, of course, go straight to the doctor. And it is quite worrying, but it's a very common symptom of perimenopause.
And I think that's possibly the reason why women who don't know their menopausal were historically pointed in the direction of antidepressants
Yeah,
because it was
I
mood
know.
and it could actually be progesterone. So
Oh, I think you just have to push your GP. You can get estrogen progesterone tested between days 19 and 22, and your GP should do it. Yes, do not say, look, can you please check my hormones? If they say, oh, here's a antidepressant, they haven't even looked at your female hormones. Push to test the female hormones and understand what's happening with your progesterone. And in fact, even if you're not getting these symptoms and you're listening to us talking about this, I know it sounds a bit scary, but just go and get a blood test now anyway, because then you can compare it. So then when you do, your progesterone really is declining, you can say, ah, right, well, I tested it 4 years ago and it's a lot lower than it was. It's a lot lower now than it was then. So I think it's a really, easy thing they can just go and do.
personally, I've had to have these tests done privately. I haven't been able to access them via my GP. So, but I do consider that as a sort of every couple of years, a real kind of a way of investing in myself. So I do save up, and I have found them really, really quite helpful.
Yeah, well, I think if you absolutely can't, but you know what, you could change GP. Find a woman. I'm not saying that female GPs are, sometimes any better, but try and see if you can move a GP and just get those blood tests done, because it just helps you understand a little bit more about why you're feeling that way. But it's just to be aware that from the age of 40, even 35, this could be happening. And women can be quite frightened and think it might be to do with something else. And you know what? This is just a stage of our lives.
Yeah, and it is so personal, isn't it? Getting, like I said, my sister and I, very different reaction to progesterone. It's finding what works for you. Um, and speaking about perimenopause or menopausal symptoms, I think tiredness, lack of sleep, is definitely one for me. But the other one was hair thinning, and I remember, and this is what I'd like to talk about today from a kind of beauty and wellness perspective. And there's all sorts of hormonal issues at play there too. The first thing I noticed was that I had like bit thinning around my hairline. Now it's got thicker now because I've done a lot of work to get the growth back. This has been the work of several years, and being concerned about what's causing it, because I had lots of things happen in my sort of mid to late 40s. My mum died very suddenly, and it obviously propelled me into a kind of stressful situation. Obviously, stress and hormones, so doctors tell me, are the most common causes of non-medical hair loss. So when it's not linked to a
Yes.
medication or a medical condition. So telogen effluvium, stress hair loss, um, androgenetic alopecia, hormonal hair loss. And I'm told that that covers the whole gamut, whether it's male pattern baldness or kind of female hormone related.
Yes, and the androgenic, some women just are, like the one we were talking about before, which way we both go on progesterone, that will be the same for your androgens. Some women just are genetically a little bit more androgenic and may have already always, like in their youth, maybe had a little bit more body hair, maybe a little bit of hair on their nipple or chin, or maybe some acne. So then you get into your 40s, and that's when symptoms like the androgenic hair loss can start.
And from what I've taught, it tends to be more here. So here I'm pointing to kind of
More
my
at the front, it's a bit like typical male pattern.
exactly. And I first noticed it when I'm gonna drop another name now. So in
Oh,
about
go on.
2015, I was the magazine I was working for, Sunday Supplement, sent me to interview Meghan Markle. She was an actress in Suits. She didn't start dating Harry or didn't become public till like a good 6 months later. And I thought, okay, I did my research, watched a few episodes of Suits, went to interview her. And I remember outside there being she came into the restaurant, there were loads of paparazzi. And I thought, what is that noise? And it was like, all these shots.
Yeah.
I thought, she must be a lot more famous, obviously in America than I realized. She came in, we had a really nice lunch, and then I did a selfie. And then about a year later, she started dating Harry, and then people had realized that I'd written about Meghan Markle, and newspapers came to me and said, "Well, what was she like? Tell us everything," because she was a woman of the moment. Everybody wanted to know who she was.
Of course.
I'd spent an hour with her, so
Yeah, that's very cool.
and then, of course, they all wanted this selfie of me and Meghan Markle, and I got out this photo, and I just, there's me standing next to Meghan, but I don't see. Oh my gosh, there's global woman of the moment standing next to me. All I can see is, oh my gosh, in that photo, I've got like really thick hair. This is not my hair now. All I could see was the hair I used to have and the hair that a year on, I just no longer have.
That's so funny. So that was your first you hadn't even really noticed because I guess it had been it's subtle and slow, and you noticed on the photo.
Yeah, and my hair had really thinned at the temples, and I just couldn't. I had like an ungrowable fringe. I almost like had two haircuts going. I had like Stuart at the top and kind of my hair at the bottom. But often it is something like that. For a lot of women, it's tying your hair back in a ponytail. You suddenly get ponytail suddenly a bit weedy, and so it's kind of reduced hair all over. And kind of once you spot it, and you're feeling anxious anyway because you're in perimenopause. Your progesterone has dropped, as you've just said.
But then hair is very, very upsetting. Honestly, I'd say out of all the symptoms in clinic, women get most upset about their hair. But the androgenic hair loss, as you say, is a very male pattern. So it's really around the front here.
So yeah, yeah, and so and you think, oh no, I'm on the slow slide to baldness. It really
No.
all downhill from here, and it can be really upsetting. But I did go through a long process of working out what was causing my hair loss. Obviously, I had the grief, um, but also I looked at diet. I was very low in, so I went to a trichologist, had blood tests. So blood tests again were really helpful. I was low in ferritin. It never registered on a kind of normal GP blood test because your ferritin levels for hair growth, your trichologist will want them to be a lot higher. So ferritin is the iron storage protein. And I don't eat red meat. I don't eat much meat, so I probably wasn't getting enough from my diet. So I took ferritin and vitamin C tablets. You can get them from the pharmacy. They're like a tenner. They're really
Do you
cheap.
notice a difference in your hair just after taking the ferritin and vitamin C or not? Because it's very mixed what we see and we often don't find it that impactful. So I was
It really depends. And I think, I've learned through this because I've talked to a lot of women who've had hair loss, and they say, "Oh, I want to try what you've tried." And I do say, well, it's so your hair is expendable tissue. The minute that there's something more urgent goes on in your body switches resources from making hair to mending something or whatever, or dealing with your grief or whatever.
exactly. I think if it's a stress thing, now obviously if it's androgenic or low thyroid, then it's about getting to the root cause to make you less androgenic and supporting that thyroid, which, we can do.
And I really remember my mum and my grandmother in their 50s. They were really upset by their own hair
Do you
thinning
think they were also androgenic then?
Yeah, yeah, so it's I see the pattern in families. My dad's bald, because you can inherit the genes from either side, and So I really optimize my diet. That's the first thing. Are you getting the right, carbs, proteins, vitamins, and minerals for hair? And then things like, I mean, Pippa, you'll know what the vitamins, minerals for hair, zinc, vitamin D.
Yes, zinc, vitamin D. I mean, I also like things like selenium and copper. Copper's great for skin as well. So that it's good. You can buy sort of multis for skin, but also just sometimes just really good general multis will cover a lot. But you can do, boron as well is very important.
Okay, okay. So yes, I just made sure that I was nourishing my hair as much as I could. I've had
Did you take saw palmetto? Because that's the one we use a lot in clinic. If somebody's androgenic, then that pushes and we literally see the dial move. So if somebody is very 5 alpha, which of course we're going to see in your Dutch test soon, then it literally can shift that person so they're making too much DHT. And what saw palmetto does, stinging nettles also very useful, green tea, but we use a sort of a multi with saw palmetto and it literally shifts that dial. We can see it in the Dutch test from 5 alpha to more 5 beta and DHT reducing, and that's what we find most effective for androgenic hair loss.
interesting. No, so my Dutch test, which is a urine test for hormones, is coming in the post. So I'm going to do that, and Pippa's going to kind of examine it for me.
Can't wait. I love a good Dutch.
Um, yes. So I now take some hormone drops on my scalp, which are they're compounded, made by Philip Kingsley. They're called the three drops. It's a mixture of minoxidil. There are things like caffeine,
Yeah, interesting.
estradiol, progesterone. So it's a bit like HRT for your hair.
Wow, they put estrogen and progesterone in it as well. Mm.
Yes, exactly. And that really has helped. I mean, again, it's not given me back my kind of,
How often do you have to apply that particular solution?
so these are drops. You put 4 sort of small pipettes worth on your hair. I generally do 2. I get bored after 2. It seems to work. You do it every night,
Every night.
and it can be a little bit drying. So have another scalp serum that I use as a pre-wash. I kind of sit on, either sleep with it on, or
And where do you put it? Do you put it everywhere?
no, I just put it in the bits that are thinning.
Just in the bit. Yeah.
Around the crown and the temples. I had to do a blood test in order to be prescribed this. But there are lots of minoxidil derivatives like Aminexil that you can get over the counter, and Vichy do some Aminexil products. L'Oreal do some Aminexil kind of shampoos and conditioners and things. But what I've learned, if you don't know the cause of your hair loss, I'd say diet is probably the first thing to look at. Nutrition, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely. Nutrient deficiencies, you're right. And then the big ones we see in clinic, and you talked about stress, but it's usually androgenic or low thyroid is another one, but that's different and it's recognizing the difference. Low thyroid is not just about losing hair. It's not that male pattern. It's everywhere. So when you brush your hair or you're washing your hair, you just find those clumps coming out.
Yeah, and they say that also the stress, like if you've got exam stress, it tends to be around the front, around the hairline, not so much temples, but the front around the hairline. And I think lots of kind of COVID hair loss was around there. But one thing that everyone can do is to increase circulation to the scalp,
Mm.
and that is by massage. You can get some nice stimulating shampoos and scrubs, and just nourishing your scalp. Treat your scalp like skin. There are some great peptide growth serums. There are some over-the-counter products you can buy with like a derma stamp, like microneedling. But you do have to be careful what you needle in, because you need to choose a product that is designed to be used with microneedling or derma stamping, because otherwise it could irritate your scalp because you're pushing it in a little bit further than it's.
Yeah, and especially people who have some women who have higher DHT, have oilier scalps, and it can make it a little bit more prone to things like sebderm.
Yeah, yes, exactly, seborrheic dermatitis. Um, and so, yes, so just treating your scalp like skin, really nourishing it, give it some like scalp mask. So don't put your conditioner on your scalp, use a specific scalp mask, because your conditioner isn't designed to go on your scalp. It's designed to go on your mid-lengths and ends, as they always
Oh,
say.
yeah. I just, do you want mid lengths or just ends?
In the shampoo phase, getting something like, I'm holding up one of those rubber spiky um, head massagers that come with like a lot of these non-foaming shampoos now. Just spending some time getting the blood flow, massaging the front of your scalp when you're washing, and also what's quite big now, and I'm being sent a lot of these to test, is LED for scalp. I mean, we love a red LED mask. Then now I'm holding up the baseball cap by Higher Dose.
What do you think about those then? Have you tested it?
Yeah, so I went to Higher Dose and I said, please show me the science behind it. So basically, it's a baseball cap that's lined with LEDs, and put it on. You can't tell that you've got red light shining on your scalp. There are a number of other head LED masks for hair as well, and some of them have laser in, which is just a slightly different wavelength. You can't. It's not heat building or anything. Well, there is some science to support 650 nanometer wavelength for hair, which will be also contained in most LED face masks. So in theory, you could put your face mask on your scalp, and what it does is it really kind of stimulates and increases blood flow. But I would say that these things are expensive. If you have an LED mask already, why not stick it on your scalp? Say do some other kind of circulation boosting treatments like massage, which is free.
I
Scalp.
love a head massage.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, so you could use your LED mask. But so I would always say, if you can, go to a trichologist and try and find out the cause of your hair loss, because it's so different for everybody. I'm almost back at my kind of Meghan Markle selfie levels of
It
hair.
looks fantastic, your hair.
I went to a really good hairdresser who cut my hair. It's 3D dry cut, because he cuts. Gustave Fauché is my hairdresser. He cuts your hair dry, which kind of can compensate for the way the hair falls. When you've got thinning hair, it doesn't just fall the
It
way.
plus when it's wet, thinking about it, I mean, look, my hair is so dead straight. Anything shows if it's not cut properly.
Yeah, so he cuts the hair that you have, not kind of a cookie cutter kind of wet cut that is so, it was one school of
Well
hairdressing.
done, Gustav. I might
So you
try
can
out
kind of compensate
Gustav.
with your little kind of patches of thinning and whatever. Um, I condition my hair like crazy. I use Philip Kingsley elasticizer. I condition my scalp. I try and just give my hair the best environment for growth I can. So we've said that hormones are one cause of hair loss. Another really common one is stress. And this is obviously where I like to turn to my yoga techniques. So I was going to just bring in my favorite, and it's said to be the fastest anxiety lessening technique.
Oh, really? So this is brilliant for anyone in midlife. This is like if you need quick, if you're suddenly feeling
Yeah, exam stress, and the effects are immediate. So it's great if you before a big, I mean, we will say big presentation, but I don't know, a big. If you're feeling nervous about something, big conversation you're
I
about.
get anxious every time I have to go for like these health tests. I know it's crazy. I mean, like a functional practitioner, but I get anxious. So I'm up for looking at this.
Okay, so it's called cyclic sighing, and I know you're a fan of Andrew Huberner and the neuroscientist. So he and Professor David Spiegel at Stanford, they actually did a test on this breath techniques, and it outperformed other similar techniques for the immediacy of anxiety reduction. So it's basically you take 2 deep breaths in through the nose, so like, and then a long sigh through the mouth, so like this. And if you do like, they studied it over around 5 minutes a day, and it really had some profound benefits. If you struggle to meditate, try slotting in 5 minutes of this breathing, put on your favorite song.
It's also called sigh breathing or sigh breath.
Yeah, it's a physiological sigh. It's called cyclic sighing or physiological sigh. So if you do. It's because when you make your out breath longer than your in breath, it sends a signal to your parasympathetic nervous system to activate. I mean, it will take a little bit longer to get into parasympathetic, but certainly it redresses the balance of your stress state to your relaxed state. It regulates your kind of gas exchange, and it's really nice. And you notice, like, it's a bit like sobbing, when children go,
Yeah. Yeah, when there is that really height state of, anxiety or stress, and you can't just go and do your, "Oh, just go and do box breathing." I mean, this is like, you're in that really state of fight or flight.
and it's a really active thing to do. Yeah, because if somebody says, "Oh, just go and meditate," you just think, "Oh my God, I can't do that." But the sobbing is said to be, so it is essentially like cyclic sighing. The sobbing is said to be what children would do is kind of naturally to calm themselves down when they're crying. So
That's
yeah.
so sweet. I
Yeah.
think that's a brilliant takeaway. I think
Yeah.
everyone can do that. And I honestly, I rarely meet a woman these days. I mean, I think it's unusual if a woman isn't suffering at some point with sort of stress or anxiety. So I think that's a really great takeaway. I love it.
Great. Great. Well, I think that's come to the end of our episode. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And I hope you have a good week, Pippa, until we speak again. I'm sure we'll be messaging each other in the interim because really this podcast is making all our private chats that we have, all the things that we want to know from each other, making that public and sharing it with you because this is the stuff that women want to know.
So until next time, Victoria, what are you going to be doing until we next week?
Oh, what am I doing this week? I'm going to be trying paddle tomorrow. I don't play tennis,
Wow.
anything like that. Invited to a paddle event. So I thought, well, such a huge buzz about it. It's lots of people I know play it and love it. And so I'm going to see what the fuss is about.
Oh, well, good for you. Well, I got to I taught this perimenopause course with Dutch, and we're doing sort of more promotionals and things working with practitioners. So I love that. I love sort of working with practitioners as well. So that's what I'm going to be doing, as well as the side breathing, of course.
Yes, exactly. All right. See you soon.
See you.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode of Hormones and Handstands, don't forget to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you love this episode, please do leave us a review. You can also find us on Instagram at Hormones and Handstands for behind the scenes content, sneak peeks, and to let us know what you want to hear more about. See you for another one next week.